Hey everyone, and welcome back to another week here with Moving to Georgia. I am Sarah Maslowski with KeyPoint Homes Group, and I'm so excited today to bring you all the latest and greatest of what is happening right here in the Metro Atlanta real estate market. And today I have a very special treat for y'all. We get so many people who are looking to move to Georgia from Chicago, and thought, why not bring on an expert from Chicago area to learn more about why this is such a hot spot. So welcome, Brandon Blankenship. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So if you are just tuning in and watching, joining us, please let me know where you're watching from. Say hello. It's been a little bit since we've been together, so I'm happy to be back with everyone and excited to talk with everybody. Brandon, how are things in the Chicago real estate market?
Yeah, it's pretty hectic to say the least. It seems like there's all the headlines about people leaving Chicagoland area, and that's true. I feel like out of all the families I've helped this year, I feel like a handful of sellers have relocated out of state. So there's just a lot of migration going out of Illinois, and then from the city of Chicago, there's a lot of lateral movement from the city to the suburbs.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So one thing that we see here is not a whole lot of people moving from like inner city Atlanta to the suburbs.
Mhm.
Well, I guess they are, but more so people just choose the suburbs initially. It's kind of like
Right.
two different. I'm sure it's like
Right.
it is in Chicago, right? You have a lot of
Yeah.
young
Mhm.
people and not a whole lot of families in there, or when they start a family, that's when they decide to move to the suburbs.
Yep.
So in terms of the real estate market there, do you see so you have a lot of people leaving, but then what are home prices like, and what is that doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So over here, I know over by you guys, the North Metro Atlanta area, is that you guys have a lot of new construction. Over here, where I, live, work, and play kind of thing, and majority of the Chicago suburbs. So if people that are watching this video are making that escape from Chicagoland to Georgia, I'm primarily in DuPage County. So Naperville, Elmhurst, Hinsdale, Glen Allen, Wheaton kind of thing, and we're pretty landlocked here. So with that being said, is that there's really nowhere if you want to be in like these, upper class suburbs in DuPage County, Chicago suburbs area, is that there's really not a lot of new construction homes. So if you want a new construction home, you're probably tearing down an existing ranch or just finding a nice house with a great lot and tearing it down and building up. Like there's nowhere in the areas that I typically work where they're putting up like 500, 600 affordable new construction homes. So what that's basically doing, it's keeping a lot of people landlocked into their homes. So it's kind of just like, we haven't seen like a huge, massive like just boom of increase in prices, but we've had extremely great gradual growth, which has been healthy for the Chicagoland real estate market, truthfully.
So when you say that they're tearing down those homes, so sometimes we
Mhm.
see that here where they'll
Yep.
tear down on a lot, but then they like build like a mini mansion or like a million
Yeah.
dollar plus home. Is that what's happening there?
Yeah, basically a lot of this is happening in more of like towards like the downtown area. So all the surrounding suburbs here out of Chicago have downtown area. So those in-town lots are typically 50 by 150. So it's not really like mansions like going wide. It's like pretty narrow, but like they're deep kind of thing. So
Mm.
like these houses are looking for very deep lots so they can, like basically elongate their homes.
So I had a funny, I met with a seller today and they were on Lake Lanier here, and it's not uncommon for people to also tear down houses on Lake Lanier to build a much nicer house. And I was sharing with them a story that we had a contractor over at our house wanting to replace our septic system, and he was giving us some um, insight into that. And Georgia, there's a lot of like good old Georgia boys that have been here for
Right.
like a really long time, natives. Maybe a little bit rough around the edges, but a good old boy. And he asked me, he's like, "Are y'all gonna tear this down and build a Wally banger?" And I was like, "A what?" And he was like, "A Wally banger, like
What
one of
is
those
that?
big, nice, giant houses."
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's funny.
so now in my mind, I always refer to that as a Wally
A Wally
banger.
banger? Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
gonna call it now all the time.
yeah. Please adopt that term.
Wow, I
So,
probably
if
won't.
you are tuning into the live stream, hello, we've got Brandon Blankenship from the Chicago area talking about why people are moving from Chicago to Georgia. We're going to dive into what's happening here in the real estate market. But in the meantime, I'd love to know where you're joining and watching us from. Say hello in the comments. If you have a question that you want to have answered or have insight into what we're talking about, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you and have a great interaction. So, Brandon, one of the things that you know, is a topic of conversation between
Mhm.
um, clients that I help is just kind of talking about like what's going on in the real estate market.
Right.
And this is a graph comparing quarter one 2024, looking at year over year price changes. And you'll
Mhm.
see that there's a lot of blue here on the map, which indicates a positive change in real estate prices.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
yeah, in Indiana, no, Illinois, you're in Illinois. Getting my
Illinois.
geography right
Illinois.
here with the Georgia. Um, 9.4%
Hmm.
increase year over year compared to January of 2023. Do you feel like that tracks for your local market?
Yes and no. I think what's more surprising to me is that, like, the Midwest is actually incredibly strong, and, like, Texas and Arizona are very down because there's a lot of migration out of Chicagoland to those states kind of thing, as well as Florida and Georgia, and primarily a lot in Georgia right now. But, yeah, I would say, I mean, Chicago, like, Illinois is so big, like, Chicagoland's its own sector, and then there's just, like, the rest of Illinois kind of thing. So just like Chicagoland, Chicago metro area, I feel like yes and no. Like we just talked about a little bit ago, is that like we're pretty landlocked here. So I mean, a lot of my clients just kind of understand like if this is like truly their forever home, they just go and get it, right? Because they realize is that the next time that home or a home of that caliber comes on the market could be 6 months, 12 months, or never ever again. So they kind of just go for it and just figure it out from there.
So you are seeing though that 9-10% increase in home prices in your
Yeah,
area.
depend on area. Some is higher and some is lower for sure, totally.
Right. Yeah. We got the truth watching us from Philly. Thank you. Sorry I had to miss the last live stream. And we also have Lone One Tredden from Virginia. Thanks for joining us again on this live stream. So here in Georgia, you'll see a 7% year over year increase according to this data. And I would say that probably a lot of that is driven by the metro Atlanta area. Obviously they're
Mhm.
taking data and attributing it to the entire state. And sometimes
Right.
you're seeing those higher home price growth
Mhm.
in the big metro areas. The hard thing about this, and I'm sure that you had these same conversations with clients that you helped Brandon last
Mhm.
year when interest rates started climbing, which I guess at this point we're
Right.
kind of like a year and a half into it. I
Mhm.
had a lot of clients that were like, I'm just going to wait until, home prices come down and then I'll
Right.
look at buying a house.
Right.
And if they made that choice, which some of them did,
Right.
right now they're kicking themselves because not only did the interest rates go a little bit higher, but also so did home prices.
Right.
So, one of the things that I'm seeing right now with clients that I'm actively working with is whenever we go out and or we have these consultation strategy sessions to kind of figure out like how can we get you into the home that you want in the area that you want with your budget. Um, what really kind of drives this conversation about home prices is more so, like you said, where they're looking. Because I feel
Mhm.
like here in the metro Atlanta area, it's like a tale of two markets. You have
Right.
some areas and some houses that sell for multiple offers very quickly. You're going to have to pay over asking. And then you have some listings that you look at the data and you're like, oh, okay, this home's been on the market for 30 days. And it
Right.
feels like we haven't seen a 30-day on the market listing forever.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and to that, it's kinda crazy, like, when houses are 30 days on the market or even, like, 1 week, like, houses here are pretty much listed on Thursday, start showings Friday, and it's highest and best Sunday night or Monday morning, and that's typically how it's been, and if the house is HGTV and not granny special, it's pretty much doing that, but, like, it's crazy because, like, I feel like I even have some buyers that are like, "Oh, the house has been on the market for a week, like, we don't wanna see it," kind of thing, because they think there's something wrong.
Hmm.
But, like, the reality too is, like, it's probably just price, and we can probably negotiate compared to all the other homes. So, yeah, it's interesting for sure.
So, what are the reasons that we're not seeing home prices come down as much as what one would hope, or not coming down any at all, according to that graph, right? So, we're up year over year,
Right.
is the fact that we don't have enough sellers. And we
Hmm.
don't have enough sellers because so many people have so much equity in their houses, and they have such a great interest rate, what they're
Hmm.
locked in. So, I think it's something like 80% of homeowners have an interest rate under 5%, which is crazy. So it's incredibly expensive for that would-be seller to sell their home. Even if they're making a lot of money on their house,
Right.
they're going to have to put a huge down payment just to even kind of get close to what they're currently paying their mortgage, because the interest
Hmm.
rates are so much higher.
Right.
So what do listings look like for you in your area, in terms of, are you seeing a lot of listings? Is it still you don't have hardly
Yeah,
anything?
it's kinda still hardly anything. I think it just varies from town to town. I mean, I'll talk about Naperville because that's just kinda like the big area that, like, people see kinda thing, is that, like, Naperville gets a lot of homes between that 600, 700K price point and everything like that, but, I mean, if I look in, like, the town that I personally live in, like Wheaton, or the town I'm from, Glen Ellen, like, there's nothing. And it's so crazy. I think, like, in Glen Ellen alone, which is a suburb 40 minutes west of the city of Chicago, there's probably, like, 25 to 30 active homes for sale kind of thing. Like,
Wow.
it's nuts. I mean, we don't like, yeah, inventory is very tough coming, and like you said, with like interest rates, the payments and everything like that, it's like home values like went this way very quick, and like people's incomes and salaries didn't chase after it kind of thing. So the value of the dollar is just much less compared to even like 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely very challenging. There's some neighborhoods where I see homes that are selling for $1 million that a few years ago would have been a five or $600,000 house.
Yeah.
And that is just mind-boggling. And so it's hard for me as a real estate agent to wrap my mind around.
Yeah, I mean, I can give an example. I mean, I have a house west of me that I have listed, and my clients are relocating back home to Minnesota, and they bought this house like 2.5, 3 years ago, kind of thing, for right around 47, and we relisted it for 615. And they didn't do much. Definitely tidied it up, painted and stuff like that, and new lights, but I mean, just from a 3-year return, like, it's crazy, and you showed those graphs in terms of, like, home appreciation. I saw a graph with fast food, and pretty much fast food prices from, like, McDonald's, like, Taco Bell, like, Wendy's and stuff like that, like, 20 I think they had the graph from 2019 to where it is now, and the prices of, like, a burger or fries or a McFlurry, or just, like, those kinda, like, everyday, like, very popular, items on the menu and stuff like that, like, they're, like, up, like, 100 plus percent in terms of, like, price. So, like, double the price on, like, products, but, like, no one knows because they've just gradually been doing that the past 3 years, just kinda keep climbing up. So it's pretty nuts. It's like, I McDonald's and I'm spending, like, 15 bucks, and I was like, "That was $8 for 4 years ago."
Yeah, I heard another agent speak, and this was an agent that has 2 kids, so a family of 4. I don't have kids, but he was talking about how he every time they go to Chick-fil-A, it's a $75 expense. And I was like,
Crazy.
"What?"
That's
Like, that just
insane.
blew my mind,
That's
and
crazy.
that's just, you think of fast food as cheap and inexpensive, and
Right.
a cheap alternative, but golly, I could not
Yeah, no.
imagine.
I mean, McDonald's is the same price as Chick-fil-A. Like, it's nuts. I can't even go to Five Guys anymore without spending, like, $25. It's crazy.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
I
It's been a
know.
long time since I've been to Five Guys. We have a Culver's near our house, and sometimes I see, like, like when you come up to the drive-through and you can see like what someone ordered and their price,
Right. The price.
and it's like 70, $80 on stuff.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
nuts.
I
That's crazy.
I feel like I'm spending too much on my $10 meal.
Right, that's crazy.
Yeah. So if you have any questions about making a move, what's going on in the real estate market, let me know in the comments, or if you just want to say hello, tell us where you're watching from. We've got Brandon Blankenship from the Chicago area joining us, and we're talking about what's going on in the real estate market and why people are leaving Chicago and moving to Georgia. And so let's, why are people moving, Brandon? Oh, shoot. Wrong
Why are
button.
why are people moving from leaving
Yeah, why are
Chicago?
just in general, why do you feel like so many people are
Yeah,
leaving Chicago?
I feel like, just in terms of just like, I feel it's a lot of retirees that are leaving, or people
Mhm.
that get job reloads kind of thing. I mean, my uncle has like said to me ever since like for like the past few years now, he always talks about how Chicago is a great place to have a career, and build like build your career and stuff like that, but it's an awful place to retire. And a big reason for that is because of property taxes. I mean, I think like Illinois just has like top 3 highest property tax rates, in America, and it's pretty nuts. I mean, like, it's so crazy to see, like, here for our first time home buyer is probably like a $400,000 house, and on a $400,000 house, property taxes on that is probably between like it depends on the area that you're looking for, the size of the house and everything like that, but I would just call a $400,000 house and I would call 450 in Wheaton is probably 1,600 to 1,800 square feet, and the property tax are probably like six to $7,000 on that. So if you're putting 5% down on that, like that's probably like 3,800 a month, 36 to 3,800 a month, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I actually I pulled 2 houses in your area to kinda compare them to, what a similar home would be in our area. So this is in Glen Ellen, a 540 house. I thought this looked cute. Um, 3.2, only 1,100 square feet. And let me take this off. The property taxes in 2022 was just over $6,300. That's
Mhm.
insane.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean,
Comparatively,
that's pretty prime Glen Ellen. But like, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that house isn't big, and I don't think there's a basement or anything like that.
yeah, so here is a home in Gainesville priced at 465, 1,900 square feet, and the property taxes in 2022 were $2,400. So, yeah, that's like
It's nuts.
double compared to what a similar-ish house would be in your area.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Here is one in Wheaton for 450, 1,500 square feet, $7,000 in property taxes.
Yeah, it's nuts. It'll probably go up because DuPage County gets reassessed every 3 years, I believe. Like the biggest, like a big change kind of thing. So we just had our change this year, and everyone that lives around here, and even clients, will ask for like who are tax attorneys to appeal their property taxes because some people have went up like significantly, like $1,000 on their property taxes for a year, which is a ton, which is nuts.
So, wait, so that's a good question about property taxes. Do they not do an assessment every single year?
Nope, DuPage County is every 3 years, and the only county that's every two, I believe, is Cook County, which is city of Chicago.
Interesting. So, here in Georgia, I guess maybe it could vary by county, but every single year they assess your property tax values.
Yeah, yeah,
So every single year it could go up. One thing I learned from my neighbor who is amazing. But she is like a very good, like staunch advocate for
right.
having the county not, over assess or inflate the value of your property taxes. But here in Georgia, if you go through the appeals process and you take it through to the board of what's called equalization here,
Mhm.
regardless of whether or not they agree with you and decrease your property taxes or keep it the same, if you go through that process, you can lock in your assessed
Hmm.
value for 3 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
every 3 years, I go through that process so that I can lock in that property tax value, which means that obviously, when home prices increase and they assess you at a higher rate, you're not having to get that reassessment.
Yeah, that's crazy. Over here, it's like, I don't know, it's interesting here because like some people like it'll go up like $500 for the year or something like that. But if you take it to a tax attorney, the tax attorney might say like it might not be worth it for you to do it after paying out attorney fees as well. Um,
So that's
so
another so can you
it gets tough.
as a can you do that without an attorney?
I believe you can. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't been through it yet, but I have a lot of clients that like request tax attorneys kind of thing. So that's what they're doing. But I mean, year after year, taxes will go up here kind of thing. Illinois works in arrears. So 2024, we're paying last year's property taxes kind of thing. We're paying 2023. So we're always kind of like behind the eight ball. But like, yeah, like this year was like the big assessment year kind of thing. And everyone was kind of like, freaking out, quote unquote, because we just won 3 years of obvious appreciation in terms of home values.
Right.
So I mean, it just like depends. Like some people got hit way worse, but it's just crazy.
So the truth says that it's been to Chicago and Daleville in Illinois on several occasions. Nice, but the Southern hospitality that he experiences in Georgia is much better.
Mm,
You've been
I
to
don't know
both.
about that.
You've spent a lot of time in Georgia. Do you feel like the Southern hospitality is something that's accurate?
Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate. I mean, I'm just so used to the Midwest, and people here are just always nice, kind of thing. I mean, like Midwest kindness is a huge thing. People helping people, everyone saying hello. So I feel like it's the same in both areas, truthfully. Um, yeah, it's very like where I live, it's very community focused. Like if you whoever's watching this video and you're from like Chicagoland area in the suburbs, like it's pretty community centric over here. So everyone's pretty nice, I would say. Um, but I feel like it's the same. I think the Southern hospitality is more the accent, I guess.
Yeah. Um, Maitland chimed in and said, Georgia's prices are much better, but the food in Chicago is hard to beat.
It's true. Chicago has the best food in the world. I mean, I travel a lot, and I've been to Georgia many times, and I've had the food there. And I'm gonna say I've had sushi in Georgia, and I'd rather just have it in Chicago, honestly.
I mean, I don't know if sushi is what you should judge Georgia on. I think, we gotta get like
What
some
what am I what
Southern
am I gonna
hospitality
judge?
food.
Like comfort food? Like what?
Yeah, yeah, like comfort food.
Like what? I think all food's
Like fried
comforting.
chicken and mashed potatoes and biscuits
There's
and
great
cornbread
there's
and
gr there they have all that stuff here. It's
all
delicious.
right. Well, I'm gonna come visit and I'm gonna do a comparison. But yes, I think from watching your Instagram that yes, maybe y'all might have some
Uh,
better restaurants there.
there's a great
Or,
restaurant.
I just need to get more into the Atlanta metro area to have access to everything that you have. How long does it take you to get from where you're at in the suburbs into like Chicago?
It depends. Train is consistently about 45 to like 45, 50 minutes-ish. It's pretty consistent with the train, but then if I drove there, it just varies. I mean, if I go there in the morning or late in the evening with no traffic, probably like 40 minutes on the dot, like 42 minutes. But if there's heavy traffic, it's probably about like an hour to an hour 30. It just depends kind of thing. But if I was in the most eastern, western Chicago suburb in DuPage County, which would be like an Elmhurst and Hinsdale, which a lot of my clients move to with the lateral move from the city of Chicago. I mean, you're getting to the city in like 15 to 20 minutes on like the express train. Like it's crazy. Like 15 minutes probably. Or if there's no traffic and you're driving, it's probably like it's under 30 minutes.
Okay, so one thing I'm noticing that I don't think I've ever picked up on before. Um, you say Chicago. Is
Chicago.
that how everyone says it?
That's how I say it.
So as a
Why? How's it
Southerner, I
supposed to be
say
said?
Chicago, like
Chicago?
Chicago.
She.
She,
Chicago.
she. But then
Chicago.
don't people call it like Chi-town?
Yeah. If
Or
you're
is that
if
just
you're not from
Tanya?
here. If you're not from here.
Then would you say She-town?
No. No, it's just Chicago. I guess
Chicago.
people do call Chi I guess people do call Chi-town sometimes, but yeah. No, Chicago. Chicago.
Chicago.
Chicago.
Chicago. But you say she.
I
So
do say
okay, so if
she.
you're watching this in the comments, do you pronounce it she or sha? Like Chicago or Chicago?
Chicago. Chicago. Chicago?
But
Chicago? No, it doesn't
Chicago.
sound
Do you say
Chicago.
she
She.
or Chicago? Sha.
Chicago.
SHA.
Chicago? Chicago? I guess people just say both ways. I mean, I've always said Chicago, so
I'm gonna have to take a poll from some other Chicagoan natives to see what they say. All right, so one question that I always get, or I've been getting a lot as we get closer into November, and maybe you get this question a lot as well.
Mhm.
Does an election year negatively impact the housing market?
Mm,
What,
yeah.
what do you see?
Um, I guess, like, I feel like I feel like even if it does have any sort of implications, I don't think, like, it might slow down the market, but I don't think prices drop necessarily. I mean, like, the reality to it, like, from here, like, if I had a seller that was looking to make a move from Chicago to Georgia and they had to do it in October or November because they have a work relocation, like, they're gonna still sell for greatly if they take the proper steps to sell their home. But I mean, like, I feel like the message I kind of give to all my clients, whether they're buying or selling, is that, hey, here's your options. This is what it looks like. Here's what can happen next year. What do you want to do?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I found this graphic where the National Association of Realtors looked at the data from the last 11 presidential elections, and it shows that out of 9 of the past 11, the housing market has increased. So I thought that was very interesting. It's to
Hmm.
me, it's a weird thing because you would imagine that with as close as real estate presidential elections are, that you have 50% of the people that think it's going to have a positive impact, and you have 50%
Right,
that's likely going to think it's going to have a negative impact.
right,
Um, so you would think that that would just cancel each other out,
right,
and then the market would prevail.
right. I mean, I
So
don't have no crystal ball. There's a ton of people that said interest rates were dropping this year and they didn't drop.
I feel like we got bamboozled.
Yeah, we did get bamboozled. Everyone said the rates are going to be in like the fives this year, but they're not.
Yeah, that we were going to have 4 plus interest rate cuts, and now they've cut that down to maybe we'll get 1 in the 4th
Yeah,
quarter. It
that's
almost feels like we should just stop talking about what's going to happen, and let's just focus on what is happening and make your best informed decision off of that.
yeah.
So speaking of mortgage interest rates, maybe this is something that we can count on. It's saying that the mortgage rates decrease leading up to 8 of the last 11
Mhm.
presidential elections. So maybe we'll get a rate cut come October.
Yeah, it looks like it's averaging about a little over a third a percent. So, I mean, I'll take a 6.5% interest rate.
Yeah. Could you imagine buying a house in 1984 at a 13, 14% interest rate?
No, that'd be crazy. That's nuts. But I mean, like, majority of this graph has been over 6% besides 2012 and on kind of thing. So, I mean, the interest rates have always, yeah. So this is like definitely the average in the sevens where we're at now.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. All right. So yeah, so home sales, home prices have went up the 7 out of the 8 last presidential elections. Is that home sales and home prices? So not only did the number of homes go, not only did more houses sell, but the actual home prices increased, and that makes sense, right? Because
Right.
um, yeah, supply and demand and all that kind of good stuff. Interesting.
Interesting. Hmm.
I remember the when I first got licensed to sell real estate was in 2018. And so
So it's
that,
always been up.
yeah. Um, and I remember talking to many buyers and would-be sellers at that time point too, and they were worried about well, going into 2020, they were worried about, what the market was going to do. And this was
Right.
again,
Right.
um, so interesting.
That's crazy.
So, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for buyers in the market right now or sellers in the market? If someone came to you and said, "Hey, I don't necessarily have to do anything right now, but I could, or we want to move, but don't know if we should because, all the indicators are saying that now may not be the right time.
Right. I would say it just becomes like a cash flow perspective. I mean, the reality to it is if you bought your home post 2011 and pre-COVID, basically, you probably have a ton of equity in your property. So, I mean, I have a like kind of like my niche right now is kind of like upsizing, helping people upsize, and a lot of these people have bought their home in, let's just say 2018, like between 2015 and 2018, they're looking to make a move up kind of thing. So like the reality too is they're probably a lot of these clients that I talk to have probably like 300 to 400K in equity. So, and then they realize it's like, okay, like why don't you just pay off your car payment? That's, $600 a month. And then you pay off these student loans and you pay off these credit cards and you just freed up $1,500 a month and just continue to put 20% down on a down payment rather than 30% down on a down payment. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the opportunity there is for upsizers is that like, you have all this equity that you can utilize to pay off recurring debt that, restricts your cash flow. And then as a buyer, honestly, here in the Chicagoland area, I mean, like I'm kind of an example of it is I kind of just like got in, and then it's going to be me transferring the equity into my next house that I'm currently under contract for. So I feel like the opportunity here is that how I touched base on it earlier is that if you buy in the Chicago suburbs and an area that hits kind of the big three, close proximity to the city, aka to a train station, um, schools, in a nice downtown area or pretty built out downtown area. I mean, it's always going to resell at pretty top dollar. And they're not building 300, 400 homes that are between the 400 and 500K range here in Naperville, Glen or Wheaton. So if you can get in, I would just get in for sure. Because if the rates do drop next year, no crystal ball, but people are going to say that again for sure. Um, you know, the market's going to be even crazier. But honestly, if the rates even touch 8%, I think the market will still be crazy. And you'll just be like, oh, thank God I have a 7% interest rate. So I don't think there's any win or loss.
Yeah. Looking at this graph, it is wild that
Right.
almost 40% of homes in America are owned free and clear.
Right.
And
That
and
is
this
pretty crazy.
this graph alone is why the market is not going to crash. Because
Right.
if all of a sudden there were mass layoffs, the economy just went to hell in a handbasket and people could no longer, of the 60% of Americans that have a mortgage on their house, if
Mhm.
you could not make your mortgage payments, you would just sell your house, right?
Right. Exactly.
And and they would sell it and still walk away with money
Right.
because, you know, 60% of Americans have equity in their house, and
Right.
a third of those have more than 50% equity. So
Right.
either way, you have a ton of people. And that's why I don't know if you ever get questions, but sometimes I have clients ask me, like, oh, we're interested in a foreclosure.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like,
All the time. There's
so am
none.
I. I'm interested in a foreclosure too, but they don't
Right.
exist.
Yeah. There's
Um,
literally none.
yeah, because many people aren't going into foreclosure
Yeah,
because
they
of,
can
of
s
this graphic
all the
right here.
equity. Yeah, and it's crazy because like, that graph, so 2/3 have over 50% equity or own their home. I mean, that's kind of insane. So even if the market dropped, like, 15 to 20%, I mean, that 2/3 of people in America are still gonna have a ton of equity in their property.
Right.
And we've seen I mean, it's probably been a 15% increase in a lot of areas year over year around here, honestly. So it's like and before the year over year, the previous 2 to 3 years from that were all probably like 40%. So it's just it's nuts. I don't yeah, I don't think there's gonna be any there has to be something crazy that kinda like stops everything, honestly.
Yeah. I think one thing that's hard for a lot of buyers in this market um, is when you go house hunting, especially
Mhm.
now. So first time home buyer, heck, even someone that is relocating or just coming to the area to buy,
Right.
it's hard not to look on Zillow and
Right.
see what someone just paid for their house a few years
Right.
ago. And you're looking
Yep.
at the previous pictures and you're looking at the house now and you're like, it's kind
Right.
of the same house. They may have
Right.
painted and, freshened up the
Right.
landscape, but it's still the same countertop, still the same kitchen,
Right.
bathroom. And it's so hard to realize that these sellers are able to sell their house for double
Right.
sometimes what they paid for it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's crazy. That happens a lot over here too. Like, I see a lot of people that bought at the beginning of the COVID and they're selling now, kind of thing. And I can see all the previous pictures and maybe just they just changed a few light fixtures and painted a wall and under $5,000 total for all that potentially, and they're listing their house for $200,000 more than they bought it, which is crazy. And honestly, like they can because all the like everything's been selling around the area for that. So it's nuts. And I think that's another reason to kind of go back in the opportunity there. And when I said like there really is no win loss, I think there's not really. I think there's way more upside than there is downside at the end of the day. Kind of thing. Because I think the worst downside is that you break even. And the reality when you break even, especially if it's your personal residence, like the break even is you hypothetically live for free kind of thing. So, I mean, that's not a bad thing because if you're renting, you're just throwing cash away.
And even if you don't look at it as a break even type situation, you've outside of property taxes and insurance, you've locked in, you have a fixed cost for what it costs to have a dwelling, right?
Right.
So if you
Exactly.
rented over the past couple of years, rents have gone up astronomically as well. Then you don't have
Right.
control over that, but your
Right.
mortgage necessarily didn't go up at that same rate
Right.
because that was locked at a fixed rate. Another thing when
Right.
it comes to sellers making all of this money on the sale of their house or that perception, yes, they bought at a good time-ish, you know?
Mhm.
I say that
Right.
because interest rates were really low, but buyers were having to it was probably the same in your market, pay way over asking, waive
Right.
appraisals. Everyone at that time thought like, "Oh, you're crazy for doing this," and then here they
Right.
are 2.5 years later, they're able to sell for sometimes, 30, 40% more than what they paid for it. But you
Right.
have to remember, these same buyers or sellers are having to take out that equity,
Right.
and if they're moving within the same market or a similar market, they're also looking at increased cost,
Exactly.
and if they're having to get a mortgage, you know, they're not winning-ish, they're
Right.
still having to somewhat absorb the same pain point that you as a buyer, and at the end, it's all relative, right?
Exactly.
The truth asks, "How is farming in Chicago?"
Um, it's probably pretty good. I have clients that actually have a farm in Wayne,
Really?
Illinois. Yeah, it's in Wayne, Illinois, which is that's like more like farmland over there. But honestly, like that's like the only portion in like the quote unquote Chicago suburbs. Like you have to go pretty far west for farmland, but
How
I
far would
mean
that be as a
horses.
drive? Like, how many minutes would that be to get into Chicago and have a farm?
Oh, like just under 2 hours probably. Just under two because it's 40. I went to college there, Northern Illinois University. And it's all like farmland over there. And from where I currently live, it's probably about 45 minutes west of me, and Chicago is 45 minutes east of me. So call it like an hour and a half to 2 hours would be the commute from farmland to the city. But how's farming in Chicago? I mean, it's probably honestly pretty good. Like whenever I drove to college when I commuted back in the day, there's always cows and horses and just live herd and whatever. And a lot of people sell eggs. So there's a lot of farmers markets around that are so always selling all this produce. So I mean the farming life isn't bad here for sure.
Okay, that's good to know. Um, is that seasonal farming?
You probably, I mean it gets freezing here. So I don't think like once frost touches like livestock and stuff like that, or like cat like lettuce or whatever, like greens or fruits or whatever, like it's probably dead kind of thing. So like I know my clients when they grow because they grow like blueberries and all that stuff, like they have to take proper precautions in terms of like when it gets cold, like they have to like make sure to cover it because once frost touches it, it's
Right.
done.
Yeah. There was big news in the Georgia peach crops the past few years because we had colder than normal like fall and winter. So it kind of killed the peach crops. But then
Right.
this year we had a warmer than normal winter. And so there's a bumper crop, which I have not heard that word since like elementary, middle school, a
Right.
bumper crop of peaches this year. Tons of
My
peaches.
my my new house is a peach tree.
Has a peach tree
Has a peach tree in the backyard.
in Chicago?
I know, it's kinda crazy. Like, the seller that I'm buying it from took all when I was there, took all the peaches off the tree and put in the freezer because there's probably a ton of bugs that are always killing that tree, like, trying to grab the peaches. So, yeah, there's a straight up peach tree in the backyard of my new house. It's kinda nuts.
Seems kind of fitting though.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Coincidence.
Um, have you, I don't know if y'all been on TikTok, but there's the peach scandal right now between the peach seller in Nashville and Kroger. So there is a peach seller in the Tennessee area called the Peach Truck. And this guy says they make the sweetest peaches, and it makes me want to go get some of their peaches. But
That sounds
um,
delicious.
yeah, but they're called the Peach Truck, and I guess they've sold to Kroger before in the past, but they have like a peach truck that they sell out of, and they also deliver. Well, Kroger is introducing their own version of the peach truck this year and did like a big marketing campaign, but they stole one of the photos of the original peach truck employees holding a thing of their peaches, but just changed out like the shirt and the hat to say Kroger
Right.
and
Right.
stole the picture of their employee and used that in all of their marketing.
Nope, never heard of the peach scandal. There's no such
That's
thing
the
as a
latest
peach
and
scandal
greatest
here.
on my TikTok algorithm feed is the peach
That's
scandal.
why I don't
And
that's why I don't have TikTok, 'cause TikTok shows me the crazy scandals, and I'll get absorbed
that's not
into it and
crazy.
do too much research.
I am so invested into this murder trial that's going on in Massachusetts. Karen Reed, no, she allegedly,
We have different timelines.
yeah, we do. And but I'm really enjoying this because the trial is ongoing, and every single day you get like updates of what's happening in the trial, and
Right.
it's it's really good. They're framing
That's
her
crazy.
for murder. It's my opinion.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining me to talk about all things real estate and why people are leaving Chicago to come to Georgia. So, if you're watching this and you're in the Chicagoland area, and you're thinking about making a move, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can just, reach out to me, and call me on my personal cell phone at 630-923-9535 or email me at brandon.blankenship@kw.com. But I'll put it in the comments of this video once it's all done. But, thanks for helping me or having me on, Sarah, and,
But don't you
yeah,
also
no.
have, like a YouTube channel and social media
Yeah,
and you're probably doing
You could find me on YouTube as well, just my name, and then, I have a fun Instagram page if you're around the area called Living Chicago Suburbs that talks about everything, what it's like to live, play, and eat in the Chicago suburbs. So if you wanna follow me there and see all the cool things that are happening, and beyond, or you're making a move to Georgia from Chicagoland and you just wanna follow the page to reminisce once you're in Georgia because you're gonna miss all the great food. You can definitely follow that at Living Chicago Suburbs, but however you want to reach me and get a hold of me, you can just reach out.
Well, thank you for coming on. And as always, if you're watching this and you're thinking about making a move to Georgia, I would love to be your real estate agent. And just like my connection with Brandon, I have great connections with real estate agents all across the country so that I can put you in great hands if you need to sell in order to move, or if my area ends up not being a great fit for where you want to be. I want to make sure that you're in good hands with a really great real estate agent. So if you have not subscribed to the channel already and you're watching this, please go ahead and give me a subscribe because that way you'll be notified every single time we do a live stream, which is just about every other Wednesday. And we publish a brand new video every single Sunday. No, Monday. The day is Monday now.
New schedule.
We made a change months ago. So that is every single Monday that we have a new video educating you on moving to Georgia and everything that you need to know. Brandon, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys, and I will see you guys if she ever lets me come back on again.
All right. Bye.